He's having buyer's remorse.
And he had to rent a car. He had to rent a car to take his family on the trip.
He's having buyer's remorse. He had to rent a car. He had to rent a car to take his family on the trip.
This part of them talking really disturbs me. They are like celebrating the fact that this guy had a bad time. So I think most of us realize that mainstream media is full of a bunch of garbage, and they are much worse with clickbait than even the worst YouTubers or social media people. And they basically just want eyeballs to watch whatever they're saying, no matter what. It doesn't matter what they're talking about. They're going to make everything dramatic and scary and terrible so that people tune in and get fixated to it and share it with their friends and everything. But this thing on Fox News, I guess, of course, it doesn't matter, dude. CNBS, Fox, they're all the same. It's all the same stuff. This is so awful. And it's about this guy who had an F-150 Lightning and had an awful experience with a road trip that he did due to charging. And, you know, if you are familiar with Tesla, you know, or electric vehicles, you know, Tesla's charging infrastructure is awesome. You can easily road trip anywhere in the US and most other parts of the world, whereas other electric vehicles don't have such a good time because the charging infrastructure is not good. Now, this is not the case in Europe. Their charging infrastructure is very good, and part of that is because Tesla has opened up their supercharger network. And but there's good charging outside of Tesla over there too. But in the US, it's awful. And Tesla is opening up the supercharger network over the next, you know, year or 2 or 3, but we're not there right now. And so the reality for a lot of EV owners that are not driving a Tesla electric vehicle is the experience is not very good if you don't want to stick around your house. But I wanted to go over this video with you and kind of debunk some of this stuff, because the problem is when people have a certain kind of like say you don't like EVs or you think they're dumb, you don't know much about them. When you see something like this, it can reinforce that thought in your head, and you can use these points, even if they're not true, to kind of justify your own, you know, stuff going on in your head and talk to other people about it. So I figured it'd be good to go over these points, and from somebody who has been driving an electric car for 5 years now, kind of debunk some of these, talk about maybe some of them are true and why they're true, and how you can avoid some of these problems. Let's check this out. We're going to be doing a lot of pausing because they say a lot of things really quickly that are super wrong.
Here's a guy up in Canada. He took a road trip, and he perfectly illustrates the problem with EVs. And
problem with EVs? No. Problem with non-Tesla EVs.
This is not a cheap car. This is one of those Ford fancy pickup trucks that cost
This is the Ford F-150 Lightning EV that we've talked about on the show. I think we unveiled it on the show with Ford. Yeah,
it was beautiful.
Okay, so
$115,000 EV. I don't think the Lightning is going for that anymore. I will put the prices up on the screen, but the F-150 Lightning has a lot of inventory, and you can pretty much pick them up anywhere now. So the prices are not as inflated as they used to be, but they were that expensive for a bit. So maybe he paid that much for it.
First of all, he was complaining because he said this is the biggest scam of modern times. And we're just telling you this because if you're thinking about getting one of these, you need to know what you're up against.
He
said first he...
Okay, so if you're thinking of getting one of these, one of what? Because you're talking about EV. You know, they're very specific here to talk about, yeah, we mentioned it's the F-150 Lightning, but EVs. No, this is not an EV problem. It was a problem with this guy's road trip and how much he spent on it, and that he didn't like his experience with this car.
Bought it, and it was $115,000. Then he said he had to install 2 chargers, one at work and one at home. That was $10,000.
Level 2 chargers.
Yep.
Okay. He had to install 2 chargers, one at home and one at work. So unless his work is 250 miles away from his house, you do not need to install 2 chargers. And then $10,000 for these chargers? What the heck is he hooking up? You can install a charger. It should be less than $1,000, but let's say you have a really far run. So the most expensive part of installing an electric vehicle charger is going to be the wires you need to run from the charger to the panel. Now, if your panel is in your garage and you're installing the charger right next to it, you're not going to pay very much at all. If your panel, like at my house, is really far away from where you're installing the charger, you're going to have to pay more. So for me, I installed Tesla's most expensive, fastest charging connector. It's 48 amps. The connector at the time cost me $500, although it's less than that now. And then the wiring cost me another about $500 for the wiring. So that's $1,000 total for that. And then the electrician, it was my friend. So I didn't exactly pay him, but he estimated he would have charged me anywhere from $200 to $300. So the most expensive, fastest charging option I could get, where my panel is very far away from my charger, kind of a worst case scenario in the home, would be about $1,200, $1,300. Let's say $1,500, although it would have been less than that, just to overestimate. How would 2 chargers cost you $10,000? That is insane. Something crazy was going on there. Either he was exaggerating or he had to like dig through concrete and replace the concrete to do this install. Who knows why it would cost that much.
Then he had to upgrade his home's electric panel to deal with these heavy chargers. That was $6,000. So that's his first complaint.
So if he did have to upgrade his panel, that is more of a big deal, and it could actually be $6,000. Now, if you have a panel at home that has space in it, so my panel at my house is 200 amp. We have 2 electric vehicle charging setups in our panel. One is 60 amps and the other is 50 amps. So, you know, even with our 200 amp service, we have both those. We have electric water heater, electric stove, electric dryer. With all that even, we still have room in our panel. But this could be a big, if you have an older house or your panel's not big enough, that legitimately could be a big expense that you have to go through. Now, if you don't want to pay that expense, if you're not driving that much, you can get away with like a standard wall outlet. But me personally, I would never suggest doing that. I would want the upgraded faster charging, although I've talked to people who say I'm crazy and say, no, if you drive less than 50 miles a day, you only need a standard wall outlet. But again, for me personally, I would want faster charging as kind of a just in case thing. So that could be true, the 6,000.
Then he packs up the kids. They go on a road trip. What happens?
Well, the problem was he didn't get very far. The road trip was 1,400 miles. He was going to go from Winnipeg to Chicago. First fast charging station cost more than gas for the same trip. And
it took 2 hours to charge.
It took 2 hours.
Okay, so the first charge being more than gas, that is definitely possible when you're on a road trip. And you see these articles that come out every once in a while where it's like, oh, actually EVs are more expensive to charge than just buying gasoline. Well, you can find situations where that actually is true. I'll put up some numbers on the screen. Of course, I can't do it all in my head, but if you're paying somewhere north of about 40 cents per kilowatt hour for your electricity, it can be more expensive than gas. Now, if you're charging at home, it's not going to be that much. Well, in some places in the world it will be. But for the most part, whatever area you're in, if your electricity costs are expensive, then the gas costs are going to be expensive too. And this all kind of ends up balancing itself out. Now, the problem comes in when you're on a road trip and you have to use public charging. It can be wickedly expensive. You can get into those 50, I've even seen, I think, 60 cents per kilowatt hour charges. And if you're not familiar with all this, it's basically, that's very expensive. I mean, for comparison at home, I pay around 10 cents, actually less than that per kilowatt hour. So you're talking 5 to 6 times the price of electricity when you're using these public stations. So it can be very expensive, but these are times when you're just on road trips and your fuel savings, which buying a $150,000 car, you're not going to save in the end. You're going to end up spending more money, even if you pay less for your fuel. The savings comes in if you buy a cheaper EV, when you're charging at home and you're getting those lower rates, especially if you have an off-peak pricing structure, which a lot of places do. And then also they talk about this taking 2 hours. Now, it can take 2 hours to go from 0 to 100%. It can take 3 days. It can take 3 days to charge an EV. Yes, it can, if you used the slowest charging available. So the big problem with these non-Tesla EVs right now, as of today, is that their charging infrastructure is terrible. And I actually experienced this myself. We were in Colorado a few months ago. Kyle from Out of Spec let us borrow his Rivian R1T, which he kind of did on purpose because he was like, you know what, you've had enough kind of a good experience with the charging on your Tesla. I want you to experience what other EV owners like this guy are experiencing. And it was awful. We went to an Electrify America. I did the credit card, I plugged in, and I thought it was working great. And guess what happened? It ended up ramping up to the highest speed. And I was like, this was easy. It took me 2 seconds. I plugged in, I paid with my credit card, and now it's charging. Well, 1-2 minutes later, the charging rate ramped down. And I actually have seen this at a gas pump where you go to pump and the flow is super slow and you're like, what the heck is going on? But of course, that's super rare at a gas station. That's not normally going to happen. But this charging cabinet, I unplugged, I redid the whole scenario, the whole situation, and same thing happened. It went down to this super slow speed. So, long story short, basically the infrastructure that I was trying to use was garbage. And it was going to take us, what should have been a 20-minute charge was going to take us probably an hour and a half or so to get the same amount of range if it would have been at the full speed. So this is something that can happen, but it's not, it is an EV problem if, that's the EV you have. But if you're buying any car, anything, this expensive, you got to kind of do your research and look around and be like, whoa, wait a second. So if I buy this Ford or this Volkswagen or whatever, as of today, I can only use these chargers and they don't have very good reliability. You can see it all over the internet. people complaining about these Electrify America chargers. I experienced it firsthand. So this is not an electric vehicle problem, as they're saying. This is a problem with Ford's vehicle. If they had the foresight, they would have built out a charging infrastructure just as Tesla did. Tesla had the foresight. So we have taken our Teslas on 2,600-mile road trips with zero issues. There's plenty of charging. There's even choices. You don't even have to stop at every charger. You could skip some. You could go to a different one every time. There are choices with the Tesla network that Ford does not have. If you're going with an EV, as of today, in my opinion, the only vehicles you can buy are a Tesla, if you want to use it outside of just around your house, or if you don't want a Tesla, don't buy an EV. It's just my opinion. You should stick with a gas car for now because reliability is not there. And I would not be spending $20, $30, $40, $50,000 on a car that can't do everything I want to do. So that's just crazy to me.
Place else, the charger didn't work. Went to another place, the charger didn't work. Ultimately,
and he was running out of charge at this point.
He looked, the range was 12 miles, so he took it to, I think he towed it to a Ford dealer, and then got a gas-powered truck and took it to Chicago. Came back, picked it up, and
I am not surprised. I mean, that's awful. And that sucks that he had that experience. And that's what I was thinking in the Rivian is like, oh my goodness, if I didn't buy a Tesla first and I ended up getting some other EV and then I had the bad experience like I did with that Rivian, I probably would have never bought an EV again. I would have been like, what the heck? This is such garbage. Unless, you start doing the research and figuring out, oh, okay, these other ones work well. But if that was my first EV experience, I'd probably hate EVs, at least for some amount of time, because I tried to use this thing and it was just like the worst, most stressful thing ever. And I do also want to touch on range anxiety because they mentioned that right in the beginning. I honestly, in these 5 years, can tell you I had more range anxiety on the regular in my gas car because I'm the kind of person who'd be like, oh, I don't want to get gas right now. I'll just get it in the morning. And then, especially in the winter, like if you don't live in like cold climates, if you don't have enough gas, your car won't start. And so you go out there and you're kind of like, please start. And it would start always, but I would have this like anxiety of, oh my gosh, my car's not going to start. And then it starts. I'm like, do I have enough to get to the gas station? And I've ran out of gas 2 times in my life. I have never run out of charge on my EV. So and I'm well over 100,000 electric miles. So that tells you something.
he's having buyer's remorse.
And he had to rent a car. He had to rent a car to take his family on the trip.
Okay. Now this part of them talking really disturbs me because I want to play it one more time. They're like, oh, he's having buyer's remorse. He had to rent a car. They are like celebrating the fact that this guy had a bad time. Even if you hate EVs, let's say you like think they're the dumbest thing ever, you would never buy one. I don't care. That's fine. The point of my channel and me talking to thousands of people on here is to give you all the information and then you make whatever decision you think is best for you. I think you'd be happy with, an electric car, but if it doesn't work for you, I don't care, then don't buy it. These guys are like celebrating the fact that this person had a bad time. If I was wrong, if I was like, man, EVs are dumb, and then someone else had a good time, I'd be like, oh, cool. Glad I was wrong. I'm glad you enjoy your car. If somebody has a bad time, if they buy a gas car and they're like, oh, this is dumb, I should have bought an EV, I'm not going to be like, haha, I knew it. I'm going to be like, yeah, well, sorry, maybe, let's talk about it. I can help you out or whatever. These guys are like, look at this. Let's watch this one more time.
Came back, picked it up, and he's having buyer's remorse.
And he had to rent a car. He had to rent a car to take his family on the trip.
So I went out to the Ford
They are like, what's wrong with you? Why are they like happy about it? Ugh.
plant and actually test drove it. They also, it's hands-free. They could drive it on its own. And they brought us through, and it's very impressive. It's very powerful, but it's not hybrid. So if you're going to have a problem with infrastructure, you got to have a gas option. So that's what they figured out in Japan. That's what they figured out in South Korea.
I don't know.
And right now they're having trouble selling these.
So tell the folks at home if they don't know what hybrid is. What does it do?
Well,
He's not going to know.
gas or electric.
You can drive the first 50 miles.
Right.
Okay, gas or electric, the engine decides. That's pretty
and then you can switch to the gas option.
I've got a hybrid.
He looks like he's pissed off. He's like, sorry, I just like took over. I told you to explain it, and then I explained it over you.
Bought it first week of this year. I've put gas in it one time.
Okay. Switch to the gas option.
I've got a hybrid. We bought it first week of this year. I've put gas in it one time.
Okay.
I'm currently averaging 125 miles per gallon because you plug it into the wall, and the first 50 miles of the day are all electric. And then I never drive more than 50 miles for the.
So you just said that you can use an EV for all of your driving, yet you want a hybrid. This part makes no sense. He's like, oh, it switches to gas, and I never drive more than 50 miles, so I don't really use the gas, but it's just so funny to me. Like, does he not realize what he just said? He does all his driving electric, but he wants to have a gas tank. And he goes on to explain, we'll watch it, that he does use the hybrid portion at one point. But it's just so funny that he like says right there, electric can do all my driving. But then, I don't put gas in it. But, I have the hybrid.
Part.
So it works for your family.
It
so
works
when you're taking a road trip like this.
And we took a road trip down to see Peter and Hillary and their baby a couple weeks ago. And we ran out of electricity, and then it immediately turned over. And suddenly I'm driving with my 500 horsepower gas motor. That's the key right now, is the hybrid works great. The EVs, if you're not just driving around town, you're going to have a problem.
Plus you plug.
No, you're not. You're not guaranteed to have a problem. That's the thing. They're so matter of fact about it. It's just so annoying that he does almost all his, driving. And of course, unfortunately, he didn't tell us the length of his road trip because he just said it does 50 miles electric. So his road trip could have been 70 miles, which obviously most EVs that you buy, pretty much any EV you buy today could do 70 miles round trip without having to stop to charge. You'd be full at home. You drive out, you drive back, 70 miles total, 100, 200 miles total, and not have to worry about it, but he didn't say. And what's at the end of your road trip in your hybrid when you get to that house? There's electricity there. You could just plug in and charge up. So much more convenient than gas.
And your electric bill is going up. The thing is,
my electric bill went up $12 a month.
So,
yeah, your electric bill goes up. It does. And your gas bill goes down. So a really, really quick, if you don't want to do all the math and the kilowatt hours and stuff, just take your gas, however much you pay for gas per month, gasoline. If you're going to charge it home only, take about a third to a fourth of that. So if you pay $100 a month in gas, that $100 a month is gone. You won't pay $100 a month anymore, but your electric bill will probably go up $25 to $30. So you have a savings of $70 to $75 a month going from gas to electric. Now, again, if you buy a $115,000 pickup truck and you compare that to a $30,000 sedan, gas sedan, you're not going to save any money. But if you were going to buy a $90,000 pickup truck and then you buy a $100,000 electric pickup truck, you are going to end up saving money at the end of the day after you use it for, X amount of time.
So the thing is, which is important, is the unions don't like it. The unions skill set, and that's why the unions are slow to endorse Joe Biden. They might sit on the sidelines because his
Joe Biden. Buzzwords. Unions, Joe Biden, workers.
Rare earth, that we got to get all this stuff from China and the Congo.
China and the Congo.
Practical thing Joe Biden's ever done.
Well, we do know one guy in Canada who wishes he would have bought probably a hybrid or just a gas-powered.
He said he was in a little fender bender, and he took it to the shop, and to get the parts,
and they shrugged their shoulders.
They had to leave it there for 6 months.
Yeah. And we don't know the battery. What do we do with the batteries when they're done?
When the battery dies, you have to buy a...
Holy moly, all these things in a row. Okay, I don't know what a fender bender has to do with it being electric. That's a Ford problem, not having the parts for the vehicle. I had a Ford before my Teslas, and it took them 3 weeks the trunk deck had to be replaced, the part that opens and closes. Took them 3 weeks. It's just a couple of bolts you take off and put the new one on. What took 3 weeks? Friggin' gas cars, they take weeks. I didn't have my car for 3 weeks. It's just like, okay, who cares about that? And then all the batteries, what do you do when you're done? Batteries already today are shown to be recyclable at 90+%. Think of it this way. Okay, you go out wherever you want, you say in the world, to get these rare earth materials. You dig down, you get them. Costs you all this money to refine them, to get them out of the ground, then refine them, manufacture them into a battery, get the battery to the customer. Obviously, this is very hard. It takes a lot of work. Now, all those things you took out of the ground are in your car, in the battery. Say the car gets totaled. What are you going to do with the battery? You have all those rare things that you say are so difficult and hard to get. I'm just going to throw it out. No, why would you do that? They're right there. They're easier to get to than they were originally. So you take it and you grind it up and you take all those materials back out. To me, it seems obvious. It was in the dirt and we got it out of the dirt and cleaned it up and used it. Why would you take it and put it back in the dirt? You're not going to throw it away. You're going to use it for the next battery. It's just like, that seems obvious to me, but this is still a point of contention where people are like, oh, the batteries, blah. I never cared about the environment before, but now that we're talking about EVs, I'm going to tell you it's bad.
New one, and they're like $50,000.
And they wane.
holy crap, $50,000. No, Tesla's batteries, the most expensive ones, I think if you, so when you need a battery replacement from Tesla, of course, the cars are under warranty for 100 to 150,000 miles, depending on the model. So that's full recovery. But if you had to buy a battery, it's between $12,000 and $15,000. And in that case, what they do is they take their old battery, they take the old battery from you because it has value, so they want it. And then they deduct some, and then you pay that $12,000 to $15,000, which, don't get me wrong, that's a ton of money, and I would never want to have to do that, but that's how much it is. If you opt to keep your old battery, then it costs significantly more. I don't know what, I've tried to look it up, but I can't find the exact price because I don't think anybody would do, why would you keep the old battery? I'm sure there are reasons to keep the old battery, but I haven't been able to find much information about that. So $50,000, a Model 3 costs, what, $38,000? How would a battery... A battery costs $50,000. Maybe in the F-150 Lightning it costs $50,000.
They don't just stop; they wane, and little by little, you're saying to yourself, "Uh-oh, am I going to have?"
Did you just say Little Wayne?
I did. I always go back to my rap roots. When
Wow. Okay. So yes, the last point he talked about, the batteries do slowly lose charge. You will lose. It's typically around 5% of the battery capacity in the first year. And then it very slowly will taper off from there. There are some outliers here and there, but most of your range is lost in the first year. And then from there, the range loss is pretty much insignificant. But of course, there will be some batteries that fail within the first, month or year. And there will be some batteries that barely degrade at all for the first 5 years. It's just kind of how it works with any technology. So, man, this stuff is frustrating to just hear all of that nonsense in like 2 seconds, and people just they could pick up one or two of those points and then they're just like, oh, this is all true. So I'm interested what you think about this kind of stuff. It's just frustrating to me that this all gets spewed by these, these guys get millions and millions of views. Well, I don't know if they get that many, but they get a lot of people watching them. And just because it's on the TV, people are like, oh, it's all facts. And almost none of it is facts. So yeah, talk to you down in the comments.